Do you believe that you can heal yourself? Too often we give our power away to something outside of ourselves, and rarely, if ever, trust and tap into our innate healing power and intuition. Everyone has this capability to heal in ways we never thought possible. It's your sovereign right to claim and have true health and lasting wellness. Now, here is the host of the Dr. Dolores Show, Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer.
Okay, well, here we are. It's Dr. Dolores Fazzino of the Dr. Dolores Show. Welcome, 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 everybody. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that is probably gets a lot of resistance and pushback. It's about forgiveness, but we're going to be talking about the title of the show is Forgiveness and Healing, Your Journey to Liberation. When you start working on forgiveness and the aspects of forgiveness, it's a game changer. So, what we're going to talk about today is prepare to be captivated by the transformative power of forgiveness and healing, your journey to liberation. In this episode, this is your gateway to the world where forgiveness isn't just an act, but a profound source of empowerment. And it is. It's a journey that invites you to embark on a path of self-discovery, healing, and a spiritual awakening like no other. We're going to unlock the incredible potential of forgiveness, a force that can mend even the deepest wounds, ignite your personal spiritual growth. And through some stories that I'm going to share you will witness the power of those that have harnessed forgiveness to rise above adversity, mend fractured relationships, and discover an inner peace that transforms your life. So welcome, everybody. And, forgiveness, like I said, is a very interesting concept. And for many of us, sometimes it's a very challenging thing to do because let's face it, we've all had a lot of things that we've experienced in our life that haven't been pleasant, or maybe we've been betrayed or abandoned or done wrong to, whatever that is. But I'm going to invite you to look at it from a different perspective. Sometimes when we hold on to things and hold on to grudges and we just give up that valuable real estate within ourselves that could be used for something even better. It's like we have so much energy around trying to be righteous and make ourselves right no matter what. And the only person that you're really hurting is actually yourself. You look at it from an energetic standpoint, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy to keep the fire of resentment and grudges burning. And what we know too is that when you hang on to grudges or hang on to things, it's almost like the visual of a pit bull grabbing onto your pant leg and just hanging on for dear life, that it's not going to let it go no matter what is going to happen. And it's just going to, it's swinging its head and it's just like, it's hanging on for dear life as if it was its salvation. And what we know is that, from the medical standpoint, it causes so much stress on your physical bodies that, and the physical stress on our bodies just, decreases your immune system. When your immune system's like low, it's like you just have a tendency to pick up things. Your resistance is low. You're picking up a cold, or maybe even your body isn't working properly and you pick up, a disease or a chronic condition, or, an accident may happen. It's just one of those things. That energy has got to go someplace. And it's almost like keeping it in motion at the cost of our health and wellness and well-being. Forgiveness is also a really dicey thing because, we have this idea that, oh my God, if I forgive, I'm going to have to be friends with the person and stuff. Not necessarily so. Forgiveness is about making peace with yourself and being okay with what happened no matter what. It's not about learning, turning the other cheek and making the person your best friend again. No, not at all. It's about forgiving yourself for putting yourself in the situation that you were in. And as we go on in our episode today, we're going to talk about forgiveness from a different perspective, because oftentimes we think that it's about having to forgive the other person. But a lot of times it's about us forgiving ourselves. Something to think about. When we know in, Western medicine, for, and those of you who are familiar with me, I am a nurse practitioner. I've been in Western medicine for well over 45 years, and I bridge the spiritual with the physical and the invisible with the visible. Me being very fluent in reading energy, I'm what they call an energy whisperer. It's about looking at the vibration of the thoughts, beliefs, our connectedness to ourselves, and our ability to move through a lot of different things and have this little sacred dance within ourselves to allow us to come into balance with ourselves. So when we look at the forgiveness aspect of things, sometimes it's very challenging to discern how this is really going to unfold, okay? Now, for an example, in Western medicine, there's a lot of ways that Western medicine validates information. They look at doing studies and an evidence-based type of material. We have known for the longest time that forgiveness really, I want to say, frees your soul, frees your energy, frees your thoughts, not freeze, Frees, okay? It liberates. It allows you to raise your vibration, to move into a different essence and beingness of yourself. And in Western medicine, of course, everything's kind of in boxes. They have to pretty much prove that something exists in order for it to be practiced, instead of just innately trusting that that's the way it works. That's just the way Western medicine works too. Well, anyway, about 10 years ago, I had to crack up because there was this big announcement that came through that they've done they did a study that proved that forgiveness is good for the heart. Well, I'm thinking to myself, no shit, Sherlock. You know what? We've known this for a long period of time. When you have the burden of taking on, if you have a grudge, or somebody did you wrong, or you were betrayed or abandoned, and you're projecting that energy energetically from yourself, it's almost like this cesspool that you've created for yourself that you keep continuing to fill, because it's like what you focus on, you create more and more of. I'm going to share a story from my practice. I just remember that I worked with a gentleman out of Colorado, and he was actually on the list to get a transplant for a liver. He had developed some type of, I want to say, hepatitis C or something that allowed his liver to be totally decompensated, and he definitely needed to have a transplant in order to survive. And, our liver is an organ that is a real miraculous organ. It is very restorative and transformative. It takes a licking and keeps on ticking. That's the best way I could describe it, because the liver is highly resilient. And it also filters out a lot of toxins and processes a lot of blood, and it's very imperative for our overall digestion, and also our overall state of well-being. And what I found when I worked with him was that he would be on the list to get a transplant, and in the 11th hour something would happen that would prevent that from happening. And so I kind of tapped into his energy, and immediately I found that there was this huge blockage, like right in his heart. But also, what I'm going to share with you too is that what I saw was like how the organs were connected together. It's like from the liver to the heart, there's a channel that goes intake, outtake, and then all the other organs and body processes as well. It's not a linear thing. It's more of a matrix, and it's very highly three-dimensional matrix of how everything is interconnected. But what I found was like there was a blockage between his heart, but also the liver. And so I tapped into that, and I really felt that there was something around that he was carrying around, some grudge or state of unforgiveness. And so I said to him, I said, I'm just feeling like there's something you're holding that broke your heart, and you're holding on to it. And all of a sudden the tears welled up, and I could feel that this was probably very true. And I asked him, I said, are you willing to let go of that, or do you know what that is? And he said, yeah, I do. I said, okay, so let's do some forgiveness work. So we did. And do you know that a week's time later, a liver was made available, and he got it. And I am convinced that that forgiveness work that he did to release whatever he was carrying and experiencing allowed him the gift to receive that donated liver. And he's done very well, and he's thriving very well. So I'm just letting you know that forgiveness is more than people realize. It goes deeper than what people realize. And energetically, it's connected in ways we have no idea. So, we're going to get ready to go on to a break right now. I can't believe time is flying by here. But when we come back, we're going to explore more about forgiveness and maybe the 3 parts of what forgiveness is all about. So stay tuned, and we will see you when we come back.
Do you trust your instincts? Many of us don't. Yet this is the key to connecting to your innate healer within and your intuition. Tune in to the Dr. Dolores Show with nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer, Dr. Dolores Fazzino, to receive insights and tools to realign with your inner wisdom for lasting health and true wellness. Listen for the Dr. Dolores Show, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
This is the Dr. Dolores Show with Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. To participate in the program, Join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Dolores at drdoloresfazzino.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, before we went on our break, I shared the story about my colleague, or actually a patient of mine, who went through his process of forgiving whatever was going on in his life and was able to receive a liver transplant with ease and grace in comparison to not being forgiving and forgiving what he needed to. Sorry, I'm like losing my words here. Anyway, and the importance of being aware that just those little subtle things of, hanging on to something, a grudge, that hinders our capacity sometimes to be completely healthy and well. So, before break, also we're going to talk about the three different things. I kind of look at forgiveness as a three-part process, and it's going to be a mind bender for some people, but, just hear me out a little bit. Sometimes a person does something to us and we just feel really triggered and irate, and how dare they, and you get all righteous and we go into ego, and it's just like we get our britches in a bunch, if you want to call that. And it's just like, and yeah, sometimes things have happened to us, and we also have to remember too that sometimes things happen not to us but for us, so we're able to grow and develop as a soul. So I invite you to look at it from that perspective. So, sometimes when somebody does something to us, we just get all triggered like that. But did you ever look at it from this perspective? That maybe you have done that very thing to that person in another place or time. I know that's a showstopper there, because I'm sure we have. Maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe another lifetime, or maybe another circumstance. And to take that a step further, you've probably done that very thing to yourself. So I'm going to just pause with that for a moment, because that is where it all starts, with ourselves. When, sometimes it's easy to forgive somebody, sometimes not, but I find that it's the most difficult thing to forgive yourself. We are really good at beating ourselves up, holding ourselves to such a high level of perfection. Any perfectionists out there? Recovering here. That we don't allow ourselves grace, which is so, so important. We're worthy of having grace and ease and to be lovable, but sometimes we don't forgive ourselves. We beat ourselves up because we weren't perfect, we weren't good enough, we weren't happy, we weren't what our parents expected or what anybody else expected. Who made that stuff up? Seriously, we need to change that. So when we are able to embrace ourselves, forgive ourselves, love ourselves, we start raising our vibration and frequency so that it ripples out into the universe. So let's backtrack just a little bit and just take, for example, say for an example that your neighbor, dumped, we're going to keep it simple, dumped some dirt on your sidewalk and just really made a mess of it and just walked away. Okay, so you're angry at your neighbor, but you know what? Maybe in another place and time, maybe in another lifetime, you did something very similar to the neighbor. Okay, so it's almost like putting yourself in the other person's shoes and having compassion for yourself and the other person. And sometimes maybe you have made a mess, dumping the dirt on you've done the same thing to yourself, okay? Where you've dumped the dirt on your own landing, okay? So when we look at it from that perspective, this is, something that you could say, it's a nice little exercise. It's like, I forgive the other person for doing X, Y, and Z to me. I also forgive myself for what I might have done X, Y, and Z to this other person in another place and time. And most importantly, I forgive myself for doing X, Y, and Z. Bottom line. When we start taking ownership and are no longer a victim, because let's face it, we've all had numerous lifetimes we've lived in all these different experiences. Who knows? We might have done some really horrific things in our previous lifetimes. It doesn't really matter. It's not about reliving that. It's about energetically transforming it, transmuting it, and transcending it. So you can move forward in your life with a lot more grace and ease without the heavy burden or the denseness of this unforgiveness that are in your packed bags that are strapped onto your back. It's a choice, really. And it's so liberating. If anything, do it for yourself, not for the other person, because when you do things for yourself that way, this is the ultimate of self-care. You are taking care of you, putting your well-being and ability to transcend yourself from the heaviness that is weighing you down. So, we talked about a person, needing forgiveness. We talked about this little segue of the 3 parts of asking for forgiveness or utilizing an exercise in forgiveness where we forgive the other person, we ask forgiveness of the other person, and most importantly, we forgive ourselves. That's the most important thing to remember. If you can remember those 3 things, you're going to be golden to start transforming your life. And it's really that simple. I think we as human beings have a tendency to think that, oh my God, we're going to have to relive this and relive that. And, it's like it's drama, drama, drama. And I invite people to drop the drama and just keep it simple and do what you can to raise your frequency, to come within and be curious and contemplative. This is where the magic is starting to happen for a lot of people. We're witnessing a lot of things happening right now in our amazing world, a lot of chaos, a lot of drama, a lot of uncertainty. And just, it's coming to self and making a choice that's right for you. By all means, if you choose to be involved in the drama, peace out. Have a good time with it. Yet know that is a choice as well. Okay. So when we are all about forgiveness, when we start cleaning up our energy field, cleaning up our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, starting to deal with them, this is about allowing the light to come into the darkness and shining a big beacon on everything that's unconscious as it's moving into consciousness so we could deal with it. So it's really a gift in disguise in the midst of it being like, oh my God, this is just the most terrible thing ever. Maybe so. And maybe this is all about learning to get to your next step. It's not the end all be all. It's part of the journey. It's part of the process. I feel that when people embrace the ability to forgive, but most importantly, forgive yourself, lots of interesting, wonderful things are going to start happening. And I invite you just to try it. It's that simple. So as we move forward in our progress, let's talk about emotions and forgiveness too, because I think that's another, we're going to go a little deeper with that, because people sometimes feel that I don't want to feel. Oh my God, don't want to feel. Oh no, 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 don't want to feel. But yet sometimes we need to feel what we had experienced. Because remember, everything is energy. Our feelings are energetic bubbles. I like that description of a bubble, because when you could visualize that energy of like an orb, okay? It's an energy ball. It's just like that is a pocket that's filled with energy. It's an emotion. So when we're able to take a step into that bubble, take a deep breath and just feel and experience what's going on. Just allow yourself to be in that state and just embrace everything that it's bringing up, maybe all the thoughts and beliefs or everything. Just allow it to be as it is, because that's part of the experience. And then just continue to walk through that bubble, because the next step you take, you're going to be on the other side of that bubble, the energetic bubble. And what you experience by doing that, you have allowed that energy to be expressed, experienced, and it comes, once it's expressed and experienced, it comes to a neutral type of state. So it really has no effect on you. And a lot of times you're able to gain the wisdom, the gold nuggets that I call, from that experience. Like I said, we as human beings want to make it more harder than it is. And yes, I know sometimes the fear of the unknown really can paralyze people and keep them stuck. So I invite you to be brave and courageous. And just when something comes up emotionally for you, especially if you're being triggered by somebody else and you feel like, oh my God, this is like, I can't forgive them for this. When you feel that, I think that's a sign that you may want to look at. I invite you to look at that, because sometimes when we have a lot of resistance to something, that's the very thing that we need to be doing. So look in your life and take an inventory of where, you've been triggered emotionally, or what you're holding on to and why. What is the purpose of you doing that? What are you gaining from that? Sometimes we think, oh, well, it's like punishing the other person. Well, I hate to tell you, this is a newsflash. The only person you're punishing is yourself when you hang on to that, because that other person has gone away and has gone on with their life, and they're not even thinking twice about that situation possibly. So it's something to be mindful of. We're coming up to our next our next break. I can't believe the time's just going by so fast. But when we come back, we're going to explore some more. So, I invite you, if you'd like, leave your questions in the chat. Also, be free to reach out to me. You could reach out to me on my website, and my email is Dolores@drdoloresfazzino.com. Would love to hear from you and what your thoughts are on forgiveness as well.
Do you trust your instincts? Many of us don't. Yet this is the key to connecting to your innate healer within and your intuition. Tune in to the Dr. Dolores Show with nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer, Dr. Dolores Fazzino, to receive insights and tools to realign with your inner wisdom for lasting health and true wellness. Listen for the Dr. Dolores Show, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Dr. Dolores Show with Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to Dolores at drdoloresfazzino.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You are listening to the Dr. Dolores Show. I'm Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. And we've been talking about forgiveness and healing, your journey to liberation. And, you know, we talked a little bit about the impact of forgiveness as it has on your health and well-being, and, you know, the ability to shift things energetically that allow magical things to happen, because everything is energy. And, you know, before our break, we were talking about the 3 parts to the forgiveness process, or my forgiveness process, that I feel really works, but it really kind of comes at all angles to get a complete forgiveness. Okay. How many times have we said, well, I forgive them, but I'll never forget? So that is almost like a pseudo forgiveness, because energetically you're still attached to that. You haven't come to the neutral state of the essence of it being no charge at all, because you're still hanging on. You're hanging on the ledge, but you've removed all the fingers except one fingernail. You're still hanging on, but it's still there energetically. So, like I was saying, we talked about 3 parts. When you are working on your forgiveness, it's like always look at the situation and view it from above what really is happening. It's like, so I want to forgive the other person for what they did. I want to ask forgiveness of that person for the things that I've done to them. Maybe the same exact thing. It might have been in another place or time, but it probably has happened. But most importantly, you want to forgive yourself for whatever part that you have done. If you're like beating yourself up because you did that or whatever, these are essential, because it's almost like when you don't do all 3 of them, it's almost like you have a fragmented forgiveness process. It's like, it's like forgiveness half baked. When we're able to truly embrace and step in and lean into this process, it'll be so liberating for you, because you're going to gain more, like I said, real estate, energetic. Your energy is going to come back, because you're actually calling back parts of yourself that have been locked in another place and time. Okay. Things, we are like this beautiful radiant diamond, our soul and who we are. And when things happen to us over our lifetime, our experiences that we have, we label them good or bad, but they're experiences that are going to allow your soul to grow at the deepest and most profound level. When we have an experience and energetically we're still caught in that experience, it's like part of us is still there in that other time and place. Okay, so when we start working on our forgiveness, we are like reintegrating those parts of ourselves that are kind of, I call them landlocked in another time and place. We're able to energetically free ourselves by releasing doing forgiveness work or whatever that is, call that part back to us, reintegrate it within ourselves so we become more complete and whole. When that process happens, it's like all of a sudden you get all your energy back. It's like it's because a part of you that had been in another place and time is back home to you. So you could become complete and whole within yourself. When you do forgiveness work, it's really it's a service to yourself, to your soul, and it's part of yourself. It should, if it's not part of your self-care, it really should be. It's about being mindful of what is happening around you, taking ownership for your part of whatever happened, and without any charge or triggers, and coming to neutrality. Now, we talked about earlier when we first started our show today, sometimes we feel like, we've heard that, oh, I'm never going to forgive them because it's just like, if I forgive them, I'm going to have to be friends with them. No, not necessarily so. It's about setting boundaries. It's like you forgive them for what they've done, and maybe energetically, it's no longer a match for you to be in alignment with them, and that's totally okay. I think what people need to remember is this. People are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. We're here to learn from each other. Some relationships are not meant to be, but for a reason, to learn something and then move on. Maybe a season, maybe to get you through a process or something you're experiencing in your life. Or maybe they're supposed to be here as your companion, lifelong companion. We don't know that. Yet we project onto that thinking that every situation is black and white. There's all these shades of gray. And just because somebody hurt you doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be your best friend later. It's like, make peace with that, move on, forgive them, forgive yourself for whatever you've done to them, but also forgive yourself for doing that to yourself as well. If you're beating yourself up or projecting onto somebody else all this bad stuff because they're projecting onto you, it's just like, forgive them for projecting onto you what they are truly themselves, but also forgive yourself for projecting your stuff onto them, the stuff that they're not. But most importantly, forgive yourself for projecting all this negativity of what you're calling yourself onto yourself. That's another way of looking at it too. When, I feel that when people start waking up, I feel like people are either waking up, or still asleep. And I feel like when people are starting to wake up, they realize life isn't working the way that it had been. Maybe it had been working a certain way up to a point, but what had been working is no longer effective. And when you're waking up too, it's like almost like you have come out of this. It's like Rip Van Winkle, if you want to call it that. That's a fable here in the United States, where Rip Van Winkle, fell asleep and slept for 20 years, and he woke up and he was this old man, but life kind of passed him by. That's kind of what it's like when you wake up from being asleep waking up in ascension, the ascension process. It's like, when you're waking up, you have come out of this deep coma, and, everything was status quo. And like, now it's like, now what? It's just like, I don't know how to maneuver through this. I don't know what to do next. I'm in uncharted territory. I have no reference point. Where's my guidebook that was supposed to come with me to give me the information? Well, you know what? This is what you're here to explore and learn. And there's no one way to do it. There's multiple ways to do that are going to lead you to where you are supposed to be. A lot of times where we're supposed to be is still hidden from us. We need to explore, get to know ourselves, heal things up within ourselves so we could be the best version of ourselves as to where we're going on our path. So it's important to integrate the forgiveness part and to be mindful and reflective, and to own the parts, and, be responsible and take ownership of your contribution to this, because it's not them or us, it's we. All of us are working and doing our best to move forward and to create something better, not only for ourselves individually, but for the world. When you're learning to look at these things and be aware, this is where like the magic happened. And I'm going to share another story with you, because this was personally happened to me around the time that my mother was going through her transition. Unbeknownst to us, um, she had become ill, and she had taken a spill, and she ended up breaking her wrist, but she also fractured her back. And that was kind of unusual, because she really didn't fall, she really didn't take that much of a stumble, but there must have been something going on underneath. And innately, I kind of knew something was up, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Over the next month or so, she started to develop a lot of pain in her back and had a brace, and to the extent that now she was having problems lying flat and had to be in a recliner. And then she started decompensating in a very short period of time. And finally, she ended up going to the hospital, and she did. And they found that she was starting to have problems with her GI system, and they diagnosed her with having an ulcer. So, which was fine, but yet things were not still getting better. So we ended up transferring her to another hospital. But in the time that she was in the hospital before we transferred her, I just got this, I would tap into her energy, and my mom was very open to the work that I did. And she said, what are you seeing and stuff like that? I said, I'm seeing a lot of bright white light. I just don't know what this white light is. And so I was working with her, and somehow I said to her, Mom, they keep asking me to invite you to look at some forgiveness work. I said, are you open to doing that? And much to my surprise, she said, yes, she was. So I said, great. So I told her, I said, this is the process. I said, I want you to look at things that have happened in your life and work on forgiving those people, but also forgiving, yourself, or asking forgiveness of these people, the things that you've done to them, but most importantly, forgiving yourself. So about a week went by, and I spoke with my mom again. I said, so how's the forgiveness stuff going? She said, they're going really well. Shortly after that, we transferred her to another hospital, and she wasn't getting better. And the surgeon at that other hospital said, we need to do an operation. So sure enough, what had happened was they opened her up and they pretty much closed her, because she was riddled with pancreatic cancer. And as we know, pancreatic cancer is like one of those silent killers that you don't really know how bad it is until it is like really bad, because that's when you become symptomatic. Yet, after her surgery, she was in the hospital another 2 or 3 days, and then she made her transition. But looking back in retrospect, part of her process with the big white light, it was her transition time. That's what I saw. And the forgiveness thing, I think, allowed her to go with a lot more grace and ease than it could have. She went really quick, which, for us behind, it was, it was very devastating, because it just happened so quick. But in retrospect, for her, it really was a gift of grace, because energetically it unloaded a lot of her dense energy in her body that allowed her to transition easily. So once again, I'm just going to leave you something to ponder about, why it's important for forgiveness. It's not like you're going to die the next moment or whatever, but it releases a lot of the burden and a lot of the a lot of the denseness that keeps us weighted down, just not only energetically, but physically, mentally, and spiritually as well. So we are going on to our last break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about forgiveness and healing, the journey to liberation. See you soon.
Do you trust your instincts? Many of us don't. Yet this is the key to connecting to your innate healer within and your intuition. Tune in to the Dr. Dolores Show with nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer, Dr. Dolores Fazzino, to receive insights and tools to realign with your inner wisdom for lasting health and true wellness. Listen for the Dr. Dolores Show, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Dr. Dolores Show with Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to Dolores at drdoloresfazzino.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Dr. Dolores Show with myself, host Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. And we've been talking about forgiveness and healing, your journey to liberation. And it is liberating. And, you know, when we are able to embrace that, magic is going to happen. And, you know, speaking of magic, let's talk about what's coming up next week. We're going to talk about Intuition Unleashed, Trust Your Secret Sauce. Let's face it, your intuition is your own secret sauce. We're going to unlock the true potential within you on our next episode, Intuition Unleashed, Trust Your Secret Sauce. This is going to be a captivating episode where we delve deep into the power of intuition, helping you harness your innate wisdom for remarkable success. We're going to discover how trusting your intuition, your ultimate secret sauce, can transform your life. And with our discussions, we're going to provide actionable insights to amplify your intuitive abilities, guiding you towards confident decision-making and abundance in every aspect of your life. So, you know, with that, we're also going to talk about connecting with your higher self. So that's something to stay tuned for, because once you connect with your higher self, it's like that bigger aspect of who you are, because we're just one little fragment of who we are on a grander scale. And when you start integrating and merging with that aspect of yourself, this is where you are able to ground yourself in your body, mind, and soul. So I'm excited to bring that to you. The other thing I wanted to share with you as well before we go on is that I will be a speaker on the Burnout Summit, which is going to be held October 3rd through the 9th. It's a virtual summit, and I'm one of 12 experts, and I'm going to be talking about spiritual burnout. I know there is such a thing. And sometimes it's when we're continuously looking at spiritual things and we get lopsided. So more for that later, but it's about refueling, refreshing, recharging, and reclaim your life. And the link is bit.ly/burnout summit. That's how you get to that. And I'll leave the link later on in the show. But let's get back to talking about forgiveness. So, we know that forgiveness is essential to our health and well-being. We know that forgiveness is about healing up our energetic debris so we can move forward. I'm almost called to share this other story that I think is going to it'll probably drive this home. Being in the healthcare industry, like I said, for a long time, I always used to wonder, we used to have we used to do a lot of open heart surgery back in the day. Now it's all by stents and interventional radiology. So we rarely do the open procedures. But what was happening is that when a cardiac patient would have a bypass surgery, he would go through a period of depression in his recovery phase, which I thought was very fascinating, because why is that so? And it dawned on me, and I got an energetic download from my higher self saying that when a person needs to have heart surgery, they have a physical block, okay? When you transform that and take that deeper, there's also an energetic block there as well. Okay, so when you do a bypass surgery, is that you're bringing more circulation to the heart that was blocked, okay, the physical heart, but energetically, it's shifting. It's opening up that area where there was a lot of blockages, okay? So energetically, when there is decreased blood flow to an area, okay, and now that there's blood flow there, it's like whatever was blocked is coming from being unblocked to activation. Okay, think about that for a second. So maybe a person had been really badly hurt and maybe hasn't done any forgiveness work and caused their heart pretty much to energetically shut down, but physically shut down as well. Now you're adding, you fixed that, you bypassed it, you're adding more blood to the physical heart. So energetically, the energetic heart is starting to get nourished. And so it's raw. Energetically, there's no place for it to hide. And so they get to feel a little more depressed. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But it's the truth, though, when you look at it on the bigger picture, and it's something to consider. So maybe these patients need to look at why they're feeling so depressed, because we know a lot of times feelings that have been stuffed and then they kind of resurface, all of a sudden it puts people into a depression. It's like an overwhelm, because those things can't hide anymore. There's no place for it to go. And so now it's time to deal with that. So it's something to contemplate. So, your heart, even though it's the physical aspect of you, there's also the energetic, the spiritual, emotional, and dimensional aspects of your heart, every organ in your system, your physical body, and it's all orchestrating together and working in ways you have no idea. So when you start working on healing, working on forgiveness, remember there's 3 parts: forgiving the other person, asking forgiveness of the other person for the same things you've done, but also forgiving yourself for the exact same things that you've done to that other person and yourself. This is where healing can happen in ways you never thought possible. So I want to thank everybody for coming today and listening. And if you like what you hear, please let us know. Drop us an email. And if there's certain things that you want to learn more about and explore, I'm always open to suggestions for topics for our show. I want to know what you want to know. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear from you what you're wanting to learn about, because I feel the sky's the limit. And as a reminder to you, I invite you to embrace forgiveness as something that you're going to look at, observe, experience, because I know it'll change your life in ways you never thought possible. So we love you. We appreciate you. Remember to be kind to yourself and love yourself more than you can imagine. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Dolores Show. Dr. Dolores returns Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, remember to be kind to yourself and create your best life. You are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Dolores Show. Dr. Dolores returns Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Mountain, 12 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, remember to be kind to yourself and create your best life. You are worth it.